In Africa, there are opportunities for the accounting profession to have a greater degree of participation and activism. When we look at the vision that the political leaders have defined for the success of Africa, you find that as professionals in the accounting profession, we have not come closer to complementing those visions. The political leaders in Africa are citing the importance of the big agendas, like, for instance, the African Union has got a big agenda for the next 50 years of Agenda 2063. That agenda is about the importance of developing the issues of infrastructure in Africa, the issues of agriculture in Africa, issues of developing extractive industries in Africa, and all these significant priorities that require a more strengthened and a more robust and a solid accountability framework within the governments. And this is a space that as African professionals, we need to begin to look into, getting into and supporting government with. Indeed, indeed. And in that vein, the presence of skilled accountants, professional accountants in the public sector in Africa is very, very limited. And therefore, as we begin to look into how we grow the pipeline of accountants in Africa, we need to think of the public sector in particular and make it a point that those public sector principles and fundamentals of service delivery are strengthened and given more momentum in our outlook of what a professional is in the public sector. One way of doing that is creating awareness about the importance of accountancy as a profession. Creating awareness about the importance of the public sector as an engine room for economic prosperity and economic growth in the continent. Our youth, our children are not necessarily familiar with that reality. And therefore, as institutes in Africa, we have got an obligation to do that. The second one is to develop strong institutional offerings in the form of public sector specific designations. And in this respect, there's a lot that we still need to do to broaden our offerings, not only to be private sector focused and orientated, but to cover the breadth of the demands of the markets, demands of the economies, which is small business, public sector, as well as a private sector that is willing to collaborate with the broader economy. So those are the issues that as the institutes in Africa, we need to begin to apply our minds to. It is a very, very significant priority that we need to start attending to as PAFA. The whole formation of PAFA, the whole philosophy of the existence of PAFA is about addressing that particular reality that we face. PAFA is premised on expanding and strengthening the professional accounting bodies in Africa. It's about strengthening the respect for good accountability norms in Africa, which is using recognized accounting and auditing standards. It's not about lowering the standards. It's about using the standards that are best in class and making those standards to be applicable in the markets in Africa. And as part of the board structures of PAFA, these are the issues that we hold dear in our hearts, and we are determined and convinced that they will really shape the image of Africa going into the future. And this conference that we're having here in Mauritius, and its theme of Africa Rising, Partnering for Results, is very timely for that kind of opportunity. PAFA is very committed to the adoption of the public sector accounting standards. If I look at the topics discussed in this conference, the whole of day 2, to a large extent, is about how do we strengthen the public sector in every respect. Because the strength of Africa, 70 to 90% of the economy of Africa will depend on, in fact, is dependent on a vibrant and a strong public service. And it's something that we have as PAFA to take very seriously. And I'm glad that PAFA is putting public sector as one of its top priorities here.